once we get everybody aboard here today, going to be part of Expedition 72 and have a lot of science work that they will do. They'll be up there for a while. But if everything goes as planned and they return with Nick and Aleksandr on a Crew Dragon, then they will be, fun fact, the first astronauts to fly 4 different spacecraft that have launched and returned to Earth.
That is a fun fact. Actually, really amazing. It's
hard to do.
It's difficult to do. Yes, that is quite the accolade. It's really actually incredible to me that I work with so many people, so many astronauts in our office who have now flown 2 different or 3 different types of spacecraft. And I mean, what a time to be alive that we have that many different spacecraft in operation. That's pretty neat.
It's a great point. And to your point, to talk about just how few astronauts that have done this. If we kind of change the qualification to which astronaut has flown 4 spacecraft previously and not put the qualifier of launching from Earth and returning to Earth, it goes to an astronaut who is in this room on a picture in the background. That's John Young, who flew, of course, Gemini, Shuttle, but then the Apollo Crew Module.
That's
and
right.
The Apollo Lunar Module.
That is truly amazing.
And he's in that picture, that photo there that you can see at the very top of the screen.
Yep, just above that Crew-9 patch. That's an amazing tie to history that this room and this building share. It's really, really special to get to suit up in this actual room.
And so this is a tradition here. There's Shannon Walker with the 2 crew members laying out the rules to a card game. This is a tradition that happens before the crew can leave the suit-up room. Someone plays the crew. This someone is the case. It's Shannon Walker, the deputy astronaut chief. She'll play the commander and crew member, and they will play until the commander loses. That way, the team gets their bad luck out of the way and can now move on with nothing but good luck through launch.
That's exactly right. I think spaceflight in general is full of traditions, especially on launch day. This is one of them that is just a really fun part of it. It's also a great thing to do. We have a lot of buffer built into that suit-up timeline, and so I absolutely love that we get to do this tradition, get to take part in this tradition. The rules change a little bit, and so the chief or the deputy chief might make up something special specific to that crew. So you can imagine maybe the number 9 is going to feature heavily today or something like that. So the rules change a little bit every time. But yes, you're exactly right. The tradition is that we must play until the commander loses. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, it's great to see they're playing with a card deck that I actually made for them.
Oh, you did?
That's right.
Tell me about that.
It's, well, you know, I guess my last name is Cardman, and so it's, trying to live up to the name. But this is something that I've done now for crews that I work closely with. So I've worked closely in the past with Crew 4, Crew 5, now Crew 9. And it's a really fun way to send them off on their launch day. And it's been really neat to draw the crew members as the face cards, actually. So I've got...
Oh, that's cool.
Nick Hague as the king for each suit, and Aleksandr Gorbunov is the jack of each suit.
Any reason that you chose for those particular?
Well, you know, that just happened to...
Just work out that way.
Yeah, I followed my instinct there. For Crew 5, it was fun because they had Anna, Koichi, Josh, and then I made Nicole the queen. Yeah, that's right. So their initials kind of lined up nicely with the face cards.
So do you happen to know, it looks like they're getting ready to start the game. Do you know what game they're going to play?
I don't know exactly the rules of today's game.
Well,
only Shannon Walker knows right now,
yeah.
And perhaps, hopefully, Nick and Alex as they're about to start playing.
She's been laying out the rules.
Yeah, it's fun to see them laughing with each other.
Yeah.
It must have been pretty funny. Yeah, this is something to me that just is really the human side of spaceflight.
Absolutely. And it's fun to get this insight. This isn't something that we saw in the past, although it was happening, you know, all the way back to the shuttle missions. But now the astronaut office has said, hey, you know, share this with the public. I greatly appreciate it. We started doing this back in Crew-9, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, I love that we get to share this now. I think it's such a privilege to get to fly and represent our countries and the international partnership here. And the more of that story we can share with everyone watching, I think the better.
Seems like Shannon's trying to stretch out the time a little bit as she checked her
That's
watch.
A good sign, actually. I think they must be doing
true.
well on time. We love having buffer in the timeline. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the background there. Some of the black SpaceX suits. Number 34 is Haley Esparza. She's the manager for all astronaut operations at SpaceX. And fun fact, she's been with every single crew to fly a Dragon since Bob and Doug.
Oh, how about that? Some great consistency there.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm taking from the body language that Hague may have lost right out of the gate.
Great, we're good to go. Got a good feeling for today.
So that didn't fill a lot of time, but hey,
but
you
hey,
got the
good
result
omens.
that you
We'll
wanted,
take
right?
it. That's right.
There you go. And you see the tether there on their suits. It's tethered to a box, a briefcase, I guess, as they call it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what that is and why they have to carry that around.
Yeah, this little suitcase, briefcase-looking thing is actually a portable cooling unit, and these suits are quite warm. It's kind of like wearing a big plastic bag. It is meant to protect you from a lot of different things, but if you are not connected...
An important distinction there, and I believe Nick said in his little crew pack, he's taking the Space Force flag.
Yeah, we get a really small volume of personal items, much of which we tend to take up with gifts. Oh, here they come.
There they are. Nick Hague, commander of Crew-9, with his crewmate, Aleksandr Gorbunov.
It's a big moment. Family and friends seeing their crew members
This way to
their
space.
suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll have a chance here to...
While discussing the weather, our crew, or Crew-9, is headed towards that elevator at the base of the launch tower.
Yeah, you can see them walking towards that elevator right now. I am sure they will take a moment to look up and really take in their rocket from the foot of that 200 and change foot tall rocket. You can see them doing the quintessential SpaceX flight suit lean back.
There it is.
The suit is designed to be most comfortable when you're in the seated position, so that
Not staring up at a 200-foot
exactly,
tall rocket.
yes,
This
not
is core
exactly
on
ergonomic
countdown.
for these
3 hours. Crew have
operations,
arrived
but
at the pad on
I
time.
can't imagine standing at the foot of your own rocket and not stopping to take a look at it.
Isn't that something? What a view that we just saw there as they
No
were
kidding.
craning backwards. We call it the rocket recline.
The rocket recline, I love that.
And
Should
into
be
the
a
elevator
move.
they go.
Mm-hmm.
And the crew access arm at 39A actually, I understand, has an incline. So there's a little kind of coming up.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little bit different than 39A.
And here they come. Commander Nick Hague and mission specialist Aleksandr Gorbunov walking the crew access arm towards their Dragon Freedom capsule.
They are all smiles, and I can understand why.
With phenomenal views to either side of them, walking confidently and certainly anticipating these next few moments where they'll get into the spacecraft and get seated and strapped in.
There's Katie Bishop, who is in charge of today's operations here at the Cape as the closeout lead for the SpaceX team.
She handed a Sharpie to Aleksandr
This
Gorbunov.
is core on countdown T-minus 2 hours, 56 minutes. Crew
Another one of
have
those
arrived
many
at the White
spaceflight
Room.
traditions. Signing the wall of the White Room before you get in your Dragon capsule. And these will be the first signatures on the wall, unlike 39A,
Yeah,
which is
here
actually
we go.
full
They
of
get
signatures.
to be the first. Isn't that something?
Choose a good spot, Alex.
Yeah.
No pressure. Oh, yeah. Very nice.
Good. Boy, yeah. He went big, too.
There's only two of them. They can take up twice as much space as they would.
That's right. Nick is a lefty, apparently.
That's true. Strangely, the astronaut office has, I think, a higher percentage of lefties than most of the U.S. population.
How about that? Wonder why
Random
that
fact.
is.
I don't know. Who knows?
I
Don?
tried human certified launch pad.
That's right. The first two of many.
And we've got one already in the seat.
There we
Aleksandr
go.
Gorbunov taking his spot in what is typically the pilot's seat, but as the mission specialist in a crew of two, he'll be sitting there right next to Nick Hague, who now takes his or kind of falls into it.
Yeah, so this is that was really funny to watch,
This is
actually,
core
Nick,
on
because
countdown
he is
T-minus 2 hours,
used to
53.
training.
Crew have ingressed the capsule.
Used to training in seat number 3, so the seat that Alex is sitting in. You saw Nick lean to the right. He's used to dodging location 8, where the displays are, to the right to get around it.
Ah,
It's one of the many human aspects of training for something like this.
yes. And while they're getting situated, just wanted to catch you up on the weather brief that we listened to. The launch weather officer, Brian Sizik, in this case, was observing a line of storms. I said former. He may be current. I apologize. But he has done launch broadcasts, so I recognize his voice.
Absolutely. And this is someone that Nick and Alex have had the chance to do simulations with in Hawthorne before. So it's nice to have a familiar person on the team.
And there they go, articulating the seats into launch position. Boots up. And now this gives them a vantage point to work those heads-up displays a lot better.
Yeah, that's right. With the seats in the reclined position, it's a lot easier to see and access those displays.
Freedom seats are in the launch position.
Copies.
And also puts them in a much better configuration for the G-forces that they will feel on launch.
They were playing some games.
I remember training with Crew 4 and playing some word games with them. Where you
Yeah.
try to guess your crewmates to guess the word, almost taboo style.
There's some waves from our crew.
Waving goodbye to their closeout team, and this is...
There they go.
The Dragon side hatch is coming closed. Expect a state machine transition to that hatch close shortly.
a big moment during the launch countdown.
Freedom copies.
And that state machine transition that they mention is the flight computer state on board the Dragon. So that software is transitioning now to a state where the vehicle knows its side hatch is closed.
What does it feel like and what does it sound like when they close that hatch?
It's really difficult to hear the hatch itself closing. At this point, the crew are in their suits with their visors down and their earpieces are in. And so you really are getting only muffled sounds from the outside world.
Do you get like a little pressure change? You know, when you seal something up like that
Yeah,
sometimes?
not that I have actually noticed. Not significant enough to make my ears notice.
Okay. as they're working to secure that hatch.
And we are moving ever closer to launch with just under 45 minutes to go.
Crew arm is armed for motion.
The 4 additional team members focused on vehicle systems in mission control include avionics, navigation and control, software, propulsion, life support, and communications with ground support teams. Apart from mission control,
Crew access arm retraction has started.
Confirmation there. Oh, and a great view on your screen that crew access arm is moving away from Dragon on Slick 40 for the first time. Now, apart from mission control, our Falcon 9 team is currently located at the LLCC at Hangar X in Florida. With just about 44 minutes until RT0 today, all the teams are settling in for final checkouts, propellant loading, and for launch. We are expecting propellant loading to begin just in about 8.5 minutes here. So in the meantime, while we enjoy these great views, let's check back in with Daryl.
All right, thank you very much, Ronnie. As we've been watching the completion of that crew access arm retracting away from Dragon, big moment, big milestone. Talk to us about it, Zena.
Yeah, gosh, this is a really important milestone. So before we start actually loading propellant on the vehicle, we want to also arm the launch escape system so that if there were an issue with the rocket, even on the ground here on the pad, the crew have a safe way to escape and land safely. As Nick Hague has experienced firsthand, these systems are really, really
Dragon
important.
SpaceX, you are go for Section 6. Close visors and arm the launch escape system.
And Freedom copies. We're go, Section 6.
And there we go. We've got the go from Core in Mission Control Hawthorne for the crew to arm the launch escape system. The crew actually issue that command themselves from the display of Dragon.
SpaceX Freedom, visors are closed, and we are arming the launch escape system.
SpaceX copies.
That's our final go for launch. SpaceX reporting go and the crew reporting go.
30 seconds.
Standing by for the first launch of
10,
humans
9,
from Space
8,
Launch Complex 40.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engine full power. And liftoff. Crew-9. Go SpaceX. Go Falcon. Go NASA.
Liftoff of Crew-9 now soaring to the International Space Station.
Stage 1 Alpha.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. Copy. 1 Alpha.
Those 9 Merlin engines now providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust, propelling Falcon 9 and Crew-9 and continuing to get good calls from teams here on the ground.
Of course, these incredible views mean we are just a little bit past 30 minutes or 30 seconds into our 9th rotational crew mission.
Power telemetry nominal.
On board Dragon and Falcon 9 with good callouts for mission control that everything is looking good. With that, stage 1 is throttling down to pass through max Q, which is the period of maximum dynamic pressure on Falcon 9 during ascent.
Max Q.
Confirmation of max Q.
Vehicle is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is now traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy. 1 Bravo.
That call out for 1 Bravo means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage and continuing to get good performance.
And vac chill is underway.
crew is pulling just over 2 Gs at this point. Next up, we heard the engine chill on the second stage MVAC engine has begun, and then we will have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and the second stages, and then will separate from one another. Then that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew-9 to orbit while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. Two minutes in, and the crew is now traveling over 2,600 miles per hour.
Stage 1 is throttling down.
Confirmation there from Mission Control that Stage 1 is throttling down as we prepare for main engine cutoff, followed shortly thereafter by stage separation and second engine start 1. You did hear Mission Control out that we are chilling our...
MECO.
There's confirmation of MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 Alpha.
MVAC ignition. Copy, 2 Alpha.
With that, we have had confirmation of MECO, stage SEP, and the ignition of our MVAC engine on board Stage 2. Our next major milestone is going to be the beginning of Stage 1 boost back burn, which is expected in just a couple of seconds here. Of course, if you are just joining us, you've got views of our first stage on the left-hand side of your screen and of MVAC burning with our Crew-9 astronauts aboard up in space on the right-hand side of your screen.
Now we are coming up on 3 minutes and 20 seconds since liftoff today, traveling over 4,000 miles per hour and 76 miles downrange.
As our first stage makes its way back to Earth, we are tracking a landing attempt today at landing zone 1, not too far from where we lifted off in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Confirmation there that both vehicles
Copy, nominal trajectory.
are on nominal trajectories. Everything is looking good.
And we're getting good performance on that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The crew's G-load dips right now. We are going to prepare to hit the separation event. Right now they're about 1 G, which is about what we're used to experiencing on Earth. Crew is traveling almost 5,000 miles per hour now and 105 miles in altitude.
As we await the entry burn for our first stage, you are getting great views of it on the left-hand side of your screen. You can also see 2 of our titanium grid fins, which are the primary mechanical structures.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Confirmation there from Mission Control that everything is still looking good.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
Now, as I mentioned, those grid fins are the primary mechanical structures that we use to steer the booster back toward its landing zone, which today is LZ1 at Cape Canaveral. Just as kind of a quick point of reference, those grid fins are about 4 by 5 feet, so roughly the size of a coffee table. Getting our first tracking shots of the booster on its way back to Earth. Again, we are tracking the first stage on the left-hand side of your screen and MVAC up in space on the right.
And we do continue to hear good calls for that second stage. Again, we will see this continue to fire until close to 9 minutes into the flight, now at 5 minutes and 45 seconds since liftoff today. This is accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000.
Nominal trajectory.
More good news.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
This second stage is bringing Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour. That puts our crew in orbit. And the single Merlin vacuum engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space.
Stage 1 does perform 3 burns on its way back to Earth. The first is the boost back burn, followed shortly thereafter by the entry burn. The entry burn is used by Falcon 9 to slow the vehicle down before it reaches the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Nominal trajectory is there from Mission Control.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
That entry burn is, of course, followed by the landing burn, during which time we'll light 3 of the Merlin engines on board the first stage. And we expect to see that landing burn just about a minute before we expect Dragon to be inserted into orbit. So we have 2 very exciting phases of flight, both for our first stage and our Crew-9 astronauts happening here at the same time.
Stage 2, FTS has based.
So a great touchdown of Stage 1 there just a second ago. And now, of course, we are continuing to follow our Crew-9 astronauts on their way to space.
And we continue to get good calls for this second stage, that Merlin vacuum engine continuing to fire and propel our crew, now moving over 12,600 miles per hour and 611 miles downrange. Just over 8 minutes since liftoff today, so we are expecting to see this continue to fire until just about the 9-minute mark, at which point this engine will cut off. And of course, Dragon will coast for a few minutes, still attached to the second stage.
Shannon.
That call.
Copy, Shannon.
That call is for Shannon, Ireland. That would be the abort zone if we were to abort at this point in the flight. However, we are continuing to hear good calls about Dragon's performance.
MVAC shutdown.
Confirmation of the Merlin vacuum engine shutting down.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Good news there from
Freedom copies, nominal orbital insertion.
from Mission Control and our crew that we have had nominal
Dragon,
orbit insertion.
SpaceX, launch escape system disarmed.
Freedom copies, LES disarmed.
In 9 quick minutes, we now have 2 new crew members on their way to the International Space Station, having taken off from Space Launch Complex 40. The crew now being in a good or expected orbit. We'll continue to coast for these few minutes, and then we get our first views inside the capsule of our 2 crew members, Nick Hague and Aleksandr Gorbunov. They are just continuing to stay in their suits and in their seats during this dynamic portion of the flight. We're going to continue to coast for a few minutes after this second stage engine cutoff. This allows the rates and motion from that long burn to settle out. There are some small reaction thrusters on the upper stage or the upper part of the second stage that can be used to counteract any residual motion. That basically makes sure we're in a stable coast before Dragon separates from Falcon, and that'll happen about 12 minutes into the flight. So about a minute and a half from now, we expect to see Dragon actually separating from the second stage. Again, we did hear the crew has been successfully inserted into a good orbit. And again, this is them now in microgravity, one of them, Aleksandr Gorbunov, for the very first time.
So as Leah mentioned, we are now just a few minutes away from the separation of Dragon from stage 2, during which time a number of activation checkouts occur. Automatically, first we're going to be checking out 12 of the Draco maneuvering thrusters, all around the service section of the Dragon spacecraft. We're also, of course, going to get ready for that nose cone opening, which will allow Dragon to dock with the International Space Station about 28 hours from now. The nose cone stays closed for the flight uphill to help protect against all of the guidance, navigation, and control sensors and Dragon's docking adapter. It's also covering 4 of our Draco thrusters that will be used for the majority of different phasing burns required as Dragon chases down the space station. We are currently standing by for that separation, which could happen anytime in the next couple of minutes.
Currently, you can see the crew is just relaxing in their seats. They are definitely vigilant, though. They are able to monitor those crew displays in front of them, keep up with what's going on in the mission. They could take control if they needed to. However, it's been a seamless ride to space today.
Good views there, looking up into Dragon's trunk, looking at the heat shield on the bottom of Dragon that Crew-9 will use when it returns home early next year.
Dragon, SpaceX, Dragon separation confirmed.
There.
And Freedom copies, good separation.
There you heard from Mission Control.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Countdown 1. Nick, Alex, on behalf of the entire team, we thank you for flying with Falcon 9 today and wish you a great mission.
And Freedom, this is Launch Director on Countdown. On behalf of the entire SpaceX Launch and Recovery team, I'd like to extend our congratulations to the entire Crew-9 team. Zena, Stephanie, Nick, Alex, Butch, and Suni. It's an honor to be a part of this mission with all of you. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Falcon 9 Crew-9 combo. The best bundle in the league, baby. Godspeed, Crew-9.
Couldn't say it any better. Thank you, guys. You know, we had the opportunity to meet so many people that were involved with the Falcon 9, and along the way was a sweet ride. I'm pretty sure my youngest son would say it was Sigma. Alex has got a few words to add as well.
All the agencies that made this launch possible. Roscosmos, NASA, SpaceX. And thank you to my family and friends for their support. And also I'd like to express my gratitude to the hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are involved in the development of space technologies and to move humanity forward. Today's launch is also their accomplishment. Хочу сказать спасибо Роскосмосу, НАСА совместно с SpaceX за успешный запуск человека на орбиту, за очередной успешный запуск, и также благодарить родных и близких за поддержку. Спасибо.
Incredible words from our commander and great views of Dragon up in orbit on your screen right now.
It's been about 14 minutes and 30 seconds since coming up on 15 minutes now since liftoff today. You got a quick look inside the capsule.
Dragon, SpaceX, we had a nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. Nose cone deploy is in progress.
And Freedom copies all. Thank you.
Confirmation there that our nose cone deploy is underway. That means that the 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during launch and the ascent portions of flight have begun to retract. That will allow the nose cone to start to swing open and deploy. That will uncover a number of critical systems for the flight up to the space station, including the forward bulkhead thrusters and the docking hatch. Incredible views from our crew up in space on your screen right now, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to the view out of Dragon's window as they make their way to the space station.
I can only imagine. And that journey to the space station will take about 28 hours, so they won't arrive until tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, they will have the opportunity to get out of their suits, to get out of their seats as well, and kind of just enjoy the ride. They're going to shift into some off-duty time. That allows them to prepare any food that they would want to. That allows them to maybe even call down to the ground. They will also obviously get some sleep before a really big day tomorrow, monitoring the arrival and docking to the International Space Station. Of course, we're going to cover all of that live. I'm really looking forward to seeing 2 more crew members float into the orbiting laboratory. And if you're just joining us, we did lift off now at 16 minutes and 29 seconds ago. That was right on time at 1:17 p.m. Eastern Time from Space Launch Complex 40 down at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. We have 2 members on board Dragon today. That's NASA astronaut Nick Hague, who's serving as the commander, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Aleksandr Gorbunov, who's making his very first flight to space. Once they arrive at the International Space Station tomorrow afternoon, they will be joining 9 other crew members on orbit. They'll be up there for about a week. A week is probably the best guess, until the Crew-8 team, it is time for that crew to come home. Of course, they launched about 7 months ago at this point, they will undock after they have completed a handover period with the Crew-9 crew, bringing them up to speed on everything that they've been working on for the last 7 months in orbit. So once they depart, we'll be back down to our typical approximately 7 people living and working aboard the International Space Station.
We are getting really spectacular views from up in space today. Shot there of our MVAC engine. We did get confirmation several minutes ago of SES-1.
And we know that nose cone opening is underway as well. Those are a series of hooks and latches that allow the nose cone to open. And that nose cone is closed during launch to protect the docking hatch, to protect 4 bulkhead thrusters that we will use for some of the larger burns that help us get to the International Space Station.
One of the other things we're doing right now is going ahead and opening the ECLSS system, which stands for the Environmental Control and Life Support System, which will be activated inside of Dragon. As Leah mentioned earlier, soon our crew will be able to get their visors open and get out of their spacesuits and settle in for that 28-hour ride to the International Space Station. Good views there of the opening of Dragon's nose cone on the left-hand side of your screen.
And coming up on 19 minutes since liftoff today, the crew, again, had a good orbital insertion, and that actually puts 14 people currently in low Earth orbit. That includes the those living on the International Space Station right now, as well as those living on the Chinese space station. So a total of 14 humans are now not off the planet, but rather orbiting around it.
More good views from our Dragon nose cone on the left-hand side of your screen. As it very gradually swings open. Obviously, in space, everything we do has an equal and opposite reaction, so slow and steady really wins the race here.
Again, now 20 minutes since liftoff today. Dragon is flying free from the second stage, and it looks like they're about to enter an orbital nighttime. So now that they're at orbital velocity, that's 17,500 miles per hour, they are going to see 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. Again, it was an on-time liftoff at 1:17 p.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, and a clean ride uphill.
We've had some good communication from Mission Control up to our Crew-9 astronauts already today. One of the things you may hear every time we communicate with the crew is a slight beep beforehand. That's called a Quindar tone, and actually dates all the way back to the early days of human spaceflight, and is effectively a radio signal indicating that we're communicating between the crew in orbit and our Mission Control team on the ground.
We now have views back inside the capsule.
Dragon SpaceX, we had a nominal nose cone opening. We do have just about 3 minutes here left in the ground station pass if you've got any fluffy stowaways you'd like to introduce.
And Freedom copies, good Draco checkout, good nose cone opening. And I just so happen to have a furry friend with me. Yeah, SpaceX Freedom. So yeah, I've got a little Falcon here. I love the package of Falcon 9, Crew-9. Yeah, we've got a Falcon on board with us. This one's a multi-flyer though. Was on my first flight with Alexei and I, and with Alexei and I and Christina. And now me and Alex. So say hello to Aurora.
And we see your Dragon, actually a good view right now because we're looking at the display cam. And Dragon delayed call, but nominal TCS reconfiguration as well as forward bulkhead Draco checkouts.
And Freedom copies, good TCS, good Draco checkouts.
Spectacular views of our Crew-9 astronauts and zero-G indicator up in orbit. Human spaceflight has come so far in the last 5 years with Dragon. Since Demo 2 in May of 2020, SpaceX's Dragon fleet has launched a total of 54 crew members to space, 34 on behalf of NASA and their partners, and 20 commercial astronauts, including the first 2 all-civilian missions to space and the first 3 all-private passenger missions to the International Space Station.
In addition to flying people, excuse me, SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft also enables researchers the opportunity to fly critical science to orbit. And that's just like what we saw with the 3 investigations that NASA's Human Research Program flew on Polaris Dawn. So far, SpaceX and Dragon have carried over 1,000 research experiments to and from low Earth orbit, both to the International Space Station and on our free flyer missions as well.
From DNA sequencing to 3D printing, studies enabled by Dragon and the International Space Station test a variety of technologies, systems, and materials that will be needed for future long-duration exploration missions. Every mission yields critical research and learnings that help make life both on Earth and in space better. And flights like today's help us continue to lay this foundation for our future among the stars and continue our mission to make life multiplanetary.
But for now, we'll be signing off from SpaceX, and we're going to send you back over to NASA. But before we go, we do want to thank NASA for entrusting us with today's mission. And of course, thank you to all of the viewers for being here with us today.